On Saturday, we have a very special guest coming to the bookstore, Professor Stephen Dunning. He's an author, a very recent author. He will be here to sign his book, and he will be doing some readings. So Susie and the Magic Turnip is the first of a trilogy. He will be publishing, the second one is in the works, probably out in a year. So yeah, maybe don't read Susie yet, because you'll need the second one immediately. You'll need it right away. So, and then he also wrote a book that we don't have here yet. We'll have it hopefully by Saturday. It's called Trolls on Mars. Oh, cool. Yeah, it's hilarious. He's the kind of writer that you can't explain it. Once you've read it, you'll understand. Just trust me. So on Saturday, so that starts at, well, he'll be doing 2 readings, one probably at 10, and then he'll do a second reading in the afternoon at about 1. So come for that. In the afternoon about 1 o'clock. And then a lot of people have been asking, but we are going to do our used curriculum resource sale in the parking lot. That is going to happen. We just decided not to do it in April, because we got rained out pretty bad last year.
Some of us survived.
Most of us survived.
You didn't melt.
And we're still laughing about it. Yes. So we are going to do it, but it's going to be in June. And so we have information coming out very soon about that. So if you have stuff to sell, then you can do that. So our topic this evening, we're going to talk about not necessarily learning styles. So we actually had Natalie Burns, who's here tonight. She came a while ago, and she did a really great talk on the different learning styles, and that's on our YouTube channel. So if you need to catch up on that, that's where you can find it. But today we're going to look a little bit deeper and how a child's brain is wired, and how different brains are wired differently. And oftentimes, so we're going to talk about some of that. And then to get specific, so what I'm referring to, so what comes to mind is word or ADHD or it's okay.
If I hear dyslexia, I think like, oh, that's just reading. But if I hear autism,
right. And the word which I found interesting is diagnosis. So it's something that something needs to be proven. Yes.
I think quirky.
Quirky.
They're always a little quirky.
Quirky.
They make
fair.
Very interesting.
Fair point. Quirky. Yes.
What that's for me.
Resources. Yeah.
Like not fitting.
Yeah. Not fitting.
Not
okay. Yeah. Did any of you think something like disabilities? That didn't come to mind? I'm very glad. How about special needs?
Special learning needs.
Because it used to be a whole terminology, right? So like if you had any of these, then the school system would call you like a special needs person. So that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about those neurological states. And I want to explain right at the outset what I believe about them, because I actually don't believe that they're different. I don't believe that they're disabilities. I believe that they're actually variations on the human brain. And I believe that that is the way God created us. And it's typical to his imagination. He loved us. He made us exactly the way he wanted to be. And he wired some people this way and some people this way and some people this way. In fact, it would be wonderful if at some point in the future, when we talk about these things, we think about them in the same terms of hair color, right? Like you've got blondes and black hair and red hair, and some have really curly hair and some have really straight hair, and each person has to learn how to style their hair a certain way. But it's not, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how we are. So that's what I believe about these terms. And I would love us to be talking about them more after this. We'll have an understanding where we realize it's just another way of how God created our brains. So some of the arguments that I've heard, I don't know if you've heard this, but there's this one argument that says, well, ADHD can't be a thing because these days. So many kids are being diagnosed with ADHD, and we never used to hear about it before. So it's just a fad. It's going to come and go. You heard something like that? Yeah. Yeah. Only thing I have to say to that. Have you ever listened to Beethoven's Fifth Symphony? Yeah. So if you look at the last 20 years, that's when there's been an incredible increase in diagnosing these neurological abilities, which is what I like to call them. But that's because it's been accompanied by advances in the understanding of mind. I wanted to know, like, how long are we talking? Like 50 years, 100 years? So I found from the National Library of Medicine, which says the actual use of the term, quote unquote, executive function to refer to frontal lobe function has been credited to Carl Pribram, who wrote it in 1973. Okay. That's only a little bit older than I am. Okay. So then it's kind of understandable, especially if we grew up in the 80s, that we grew up in a world where there wasn't really an allowance for emotional differences, there wasn't even an understanding or an acceptance that a child might be operating differently neurologically in one case and from the other, right? It actually helped, and as I was reading through and learning this, it helped me understand my own brain, which, let's not go there right now. Okay, so without much more, I do want to introduce Sarah. So that's kind of our foundation. That's our understanding of what we're going to be talking about here. Now, Sarah, we've worked together for about 5 years.
6 years in June.
Six years. Very long time. Doesn't feel like it. And Sarah has homeschooled her 2 children all the way through. Her oldest is graduating this year. She has significant experience on this, and I'm just very delighted for us to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you. So I'll just introduce myself for those of you who don't know me. I know kind of the front row. But my name is Sarah Mast, and I actually met Hester at a book fair, and I noticed her books, the books that she brought in, because I have a degree in English literature, and I'm like, you have really good taste. If you ever want help. And that's how this started.
And I was like,
So-
yes.
But I have 2 kids. My oldest is going to graduate in June. He's going to turn 18 in June, which is wild. The last 3 years feel like they didn't even exist. They're so fast. And then I have a daughter who's 16 now, and she's in grade 10. So we are kind of in the tail end, I guess, of our homeschooling lives. And when Hester and I talked about maybe doing this on one of these Thursday nights, I was like, yeah, just tell me when, because I also helped with Langley Home Educators Association. I was on the steering committee for many years, and I've talked to so many parents about stuff like this, just trying to give encouragement where I could, and then receive encouragement when I needed it from people ahead of me. So I think it's very valuable to talk about these things openly, as open as we feel comfortable sharing about, right? Everything that I'm going to share tonight about my son, he has a lot over the last number of years. 10 years, no, 12 years. So since he was a little guy. So I welcome questions. So if you have questions, or like I'm moving on and you're like, wait, I still want to hear more about that, just like raise your hand or shout my name, and I will do that. So I'm kind of going to just start kind of at the beginning. When my son was grade 1, I was thinking to myself, okay, like you should probably start reading now. You know, like we were homeschooling very casually. I did read alouds all the time. That was kind of my primary thing. It's still, even through high school, is my primary spine, is literature, and going really through every subject aside from math. And yeah, well, even still, we would read about mathematicians because I had to. And so about grade 1, maybe I started with a book that I was like, let's just see how it goes. I just borrowed it from the library. It's a, lesson book, how to read. And within the first 10 minutes, I was like, okay, this isn't going well. we're just going to set this aside for a few days. We'll come back to it. Maybe there's, we need a snack. Maybe we need a nap, whatever. And so I think I came back to it before it was due, 3 weeks or something, and it did not go well again. So I was like, okay, I know cognitively that kids just learn how to read at different ages and stages and when they're ready. So I'll try in 6 months. And I did, and it didn't go well. And then I tried another 6 months and, see the pattern. So at this point, we were enrolled with HCOS, which meant I did have somewhat regular interaction with a teacher. And I just let her know what was going on. And I was like, he's in grade 2 now. He has perfect comprehension with audiobooks. When I read aloud to him, perfect, can narrate everything back to me. Can't read, does not read physically himself. And I'm trying to do it bit by bit. He's uninterested. And so she goes, interesting. Let's have him do these little assessments on the computer. It was something that the school gave us. I don't even remember what they were called, but it's basically like they play a game on the computer and see where they're at. And she's like, okay, so we're going to put him on a wait list for an evaluation. And I knew people that were either autistic or had ADHD, but I had never heard of a psych ed before that. And I mean, this is 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. So all of this was very new to me and I didn't know what that meant, but I had a lovely teacher. She explained it and she's like, you probably won't hear from us, for a year. It sometimes takes a year. And so I said, okay, that's fine. And she's like, just keep doing what you're doing. He's great. He's thriving. He builds, he invents, he fixes things that I can't even fix. And he's 8 years old. He's engaged with learning, but the mechanics are very challenging. So anyway, I think we scoot along through grades 3 and 4. We realize that the 1 day a week school is not working. So that doesn't happen again. That was a 1-year trial and it was a challenge. And so couldn't stay in the seat, wants to interact with other kids, doesn't see the point of writing in a tiny little workbook. So very challenging. I should mention his personality is extremely dominant and wants full autonomy. So he is a strong-willed kid to the T, just personality. I married one as well, so I thought I had some experience with it. Looks different when you're parenting it. And so I just thought, okay, that's okay. It's just going to be harder for him in a different environment. So we got that done. It takes a long time to get done with appointments and everything. And at this point, I think he's tail end of 5th grade, early 6th grade. I can't remember the dates, but he was diagnosed with dyslexia, dysgraphia, dyscalculia, and ADHD. And the 3 Ds I suspected because I'd been reading about relief. What have I relation? And so I felt a lot of relief. He felt a lot of relief. He was like, there's not something wrong with me. Mm-hmm. And he can bounce on a ball while you're reading. He can play Lego while you're reading, or, and he can verbally respond to you with questions and answers. And he's doing great because he's a bright boy. So that was very helpful to hear. And she was like, even though he's right on the line with some of these things, she's like, I'm going to put his diagnosis as these things because if you remove those, the scaffolding will fall apart. Mm-hmm. And so that was very helpful to hear that I am doing things positively to positively affect his outcomes. I just didn't have the tools or the understanding to go further from where we were. You're building the blocks so the kids moving the things together. Building the blocks so the kids moving the things together while if he's a 5-alarm fire, she's a simmering. Knew he had master